Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Atomic Podcast. As you know, the Atomic Podcast, maybe I can give you a little refresher, is really the intersection of the sciences, AI, and really people that are the most passionate about what they do, and also they're really moving forward the sciences to impact people's lives, not as a research project, although that occurs, but also as real impact. So I'm extremely privileged and happy to have Allison Paradise here. She's a neuroscientist, at least back when, trained at Harvard and Brown, and she's gone on to do really remarkable work in areas of what one might call exceptional experience, areas of what would be called also non-ordinary experiences, telepathy, and so forth. But more generally, she works with children. And I found the work that I talked to her about fairly recently so compelling because of what her perspective does and it allows to open with children that might have all kinds of diagnostic sort of problems on top of them, and they might come from troubled backgrounds and so forth. But the point is that I think Allison is unique, and that's why she's on this program, to bring her perspective of the neurosciences and beyond to really help the next generation of children. So I'll turn it over to you, Allison.
Oh, that was so well said. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you.
I am so honored to be here. So my background comes in, like you said, in neuroscience, but even before that, I used to have experiences when I was a kid that I couldn't explain, that people in my family kind of thought were very strange. My mom categorized them as hallucinations that were due to allergies to medication or to things that I had eaten. So I joke that by the time I was graduating high school, I had a medical alert bracelet that just had a laundry list of things on it that I was allergic to that caused hallucinations, allergic in quotes. But that is because I was having all of these different types of experiences. So seeing entities, or whatever you want to call them, spirits, hearing voices. I had a telepathic relationship with my father, all sorts of just things that nobody really talks about. And my dad was much more open when I was a kid, but my mom really ruled the house. So she was the one who dictated, like, this is a problem and we need to suppress it. So by the time I got to university, I was really interested in how an understanding of the brain might help me understand the experiences I had had as a child. And the very first day of my Neuroscience 101 class, I was so excited. It was being taught by a guy who was a leader in the field of learning and memory. So I went up to him and I said, look, I have memories from my dad when he was in the Vietnam War and memories from his childhood. And I'm so curious, how are memories passed down from one generation to another? And he looked at me and he goes, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. They're not. He must have shown you pictures, told you stories. And I'm sitting there going, well, my dad didn't take photographs in the Vietnam War. He was fighting. And he didn't ever talk about it because it was so traumatizing. And the only reason I knew I'd had these memories was I mentioned to him at some point, hey, I just saw this really crazy vision. What is this? And he was the one who said, oh my gosh, that's what happened to me. So I was immediately shut down in school. And over time, like what happens to most of us who go into the sciences, I decided that everything that had happened to me my mom must have been accurate. And it must be true that these experiences weren't real, that they were somehow induced by things I had ingested. And then I just wholesale rejected everything that wasn't hard science until maybe 15 years ago when I had another experience that just cracked me wide open and I couldn't deny it anymore. And so now in our work with kids, I feel so called to talk about this because I'm not the only one who's had these experiences. And in fact, with the kids we've worked with so far, we're not even actually mentioning anomalous experiences or psi experiences with them. We're just giving them space to express themselves. And we found that 40% of the kids in our classes have had some type of experience that they're willing to share in the context of what we're calling an art class. So if you think about that, there's at least 50%, if not more, who are having experiences who don't feel like they can talk about them with anybody. And so what does that do? I mean, to me, it completely shut me down. For other kids, it causes them extreme anxiety. So there's just a lot here that I feel like we all kind of know and don't want to talk about. So I'm really appreciative to have the opportunity to openly talk about it because it's important.
Yeah, I'm so interested in that. Well, your experience of, say, being cracked open, but also the experiences of other kids when they're cracked open, meaning that must be a larger experience that's occurring.
Yeah.
Could you maybe speak about both?
Sure, yeah. So for myself, it's hard to put into words, when something like that happens. I was driving down the freeway, which, universe, not the best timing, let me just say. like on the road on 280 in Northern California, as I'm doing maybe 80 miles an hour, not maybe the best time to show me the truth and meaning of everything. So all of a sudden, the visual field in front of me changes entirely. I dissolve, I guess, or I merge with, I don't exist anymore. I just am with everything. And I could see the meaning and the purpose of it all. And I have no idea how long this lasted. And when I sort of came to, I was pulled over to the left side of the road and I was crying. And I have no memory of pulling over. I have no memory of starting to cry. Like, I have no memory because I was not in the car. I was someplace else. And classic materialist me called up my husband at the time and told him I was dying of a brain tumor because I couldn't understand what I had just experienced in the framework and context of what I'd been taught. And thankfully he said, "You don't have a brain tumor." And I told him if I die, it's on him. So I didn't go to the hospital though. I went for a walk on the beach and I started to remember what happened when I was a kid. I started to reconnect with the world in the way that I understood it when I was a kid. And it's going to make me cry again. I could not stop crying because I couldn't believe I'd lost it for so long. And it was right there the whole time. So the kids, to move it to the kids, it's an interesting question whether they have an experience that cracks them open or whether they're just having them continuously. So in some cases, some of the kids that we've worked with just have experiences and it's just part of their reality that they understand. Oftentimes they're not perceived positively, so they're frightened by them or kind of wanting to keep them at bay, but they just are something that they don't have a memory of not having had those experiences. And then for other kids, it's a singular thing, and usually those are the out-of-body experiences that kind of just jolt them into something. The astral projections, that's another really big one that will cause the kids to kind of crack open to something. The entity ones, though, are too frightening usually to cause the kind of opening because they tend to want them to close down. And that's where the work becomes so important because then we can talk about, well, what do you do when you encounter an entity? One, it's a valid experience, right? And two, well, what can we do here so that it's not so frightening so that you can be open to other things?
Yeah, that's something so interesting. I'd say interesting because it's also troubling. Is that I think loneliness goes along with this.
Yeah, it really does.
And for the kids, I wanted to ask, when they come into this art class, they're coming into a place they still are skeptical of because it's just another class.
Exactly. Yeah.
Just another class, and adults have really labeled me this way, and Alice is going to label me, right?
Yeah.
So their expectations are kind of a little all over, and they're not sure. And they also must have a sense that they just are alone with their experiences, right?
Yeah.
Do you see that?
Very much.
And then how does that open up in the class?
That's a really great question, and that's very true. I would say almost to a T, everybody who comes into our class feels like they are completely and utterly alone. Even if they have someone who they call a friend, they don't feel connected on a very deep level with that person. And you're right, our class does surprise them because they're expecting us to teach them art. And well, you shared my background's neuroscience, and so I am the last person that should be teaching art to anybody. So they're expecting us to say, okay, we're going to take out the watercolors and we're going to paint these flowers or something. And instead our class is, well, how are you feeling today? And why don't you express that in some way? So we have all different kinds of art supplies. So not just visual arts, but we also have musical instruments. We encourage making movies and music. We do kind of three-dimensional art, whatever suits them. And it's in those moments of interacting with the kids when they're creating that they start to realize that something is different here, because we're asking questions. We're not telling them what to do. That immediately shifts the space, because most kids are used to coming into a space and being told, this is how we expect you to behave. This is who we expect you to be. And in our class, we're asking them, like, who are you? What are you? We want to know. So we have a lot of questions. We usually say in the first class, we're going to ask you a lot of questions. You don't have to answer any of them, but we're really curious people. So we want to know about you, your life, your experience. What is it like to be you? And that really shifts them to start opening up. And it's so beautiful. When you start to see a kid who's so afraid to talk and is just doing this all day, to be in a space where they feel like they can not only talk but share their artwork, which is a really personal thing. When a lot of the kids who come to our class, they're not traditional artists either, right? They're coming to us because a social worker or a counselor has referred them to us. So they're in a space where we're asking them to do something they might not even be comfortable doing. And then they feel comfortable sharing. It's magic. It's total
wonderful.
magic.
You're bringing up a little institutional thing that I have to poke at, and that is the social work. So how does the social worker know and sort of validate you? Like, I want them with that profile, that whatever 13 or 14-year-old needs to go to Allison's class. How does that work?
That's a great question. Usually it's the ones where they're like,
They don't know what else to do.
Yeah.
I see.
We don't know what to do with this person. Right? They're too disruptive in class. They're causing all sorts of problems. They're all over the place. They're just like, here is a place we think we can put them. They're suicidal, whatever the case may be. Sometimes they're kids who have developmental disabilities, so they might be developmentally far behind their peers. They may be autistic. They pretty much just use the program as a catch-all of like, we don't know what to do. Here are a bunch of kids, which was really interesting for us to be in that place, because we then never know. And they don't tell us who the kids are in advance, which is also really interesting. We get no information about the kids. They just come. So we have no preconceived notions either. And we tell them that. We're like, whatever you've done before this class, we have no idea what it is. So this is a safe, clean space. Create what you want in it.
So this question of who are you and what are you?
Yeah.
I mean, those are two very different questions,
yes,
right?
They are.
How does the who and what end up grounding the student into actually knowing who they are? Isn't there sort of a relationship with them coming into their own in your class?
Yes.
I don't know if that's your intention, but it feels like that would happen.
Yes.
And then there's a community around them.
Yes.
So maybe talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. I really appreciate your picking up on the difference between the who and the what, because they are so different and so important. So we start the class off with the who, and we do a lot of deconstruction work around labels, masks, things that people feel like we should be, who we feel like we have to become for other people, the performative nature of being in a society, especially being in a school, and then really bringing that down. And we do a label exercise where we actually have them put labels either on themselves to cover themselves up or on a mannequin, an art mannequin, to represent themselves, to demonstrate how all the identities that we accumulate actually cover up what's true. And then we talk about what is true. Who are you really without all these labels? So that lays the groundwork then for the what. And in that, we talk about, well, what does it mean to ask the question, what are you? And then we talk a lot about purpose. What are the gifts that you have to share with the world? What's actually yours to give? And how do we create space for you to feel comfortable sharing that? not only for yourself, but also in community with others. And that is so powerful, because if you do this work, this inner work in isolation, it can be really profound. And then it can be very difficult to go back into the world, right? And say, okay, I've worked out everything. And then you step out onto the street corner and the cars are going and the noise is blaring. And you're like, okay, never mind. Just kidding. I worked it out, but I'm really not ready to share it. So to do this work in the context of a community where everybody is discovering or kind of rediscovering themselves together builds a lot of confidence and sharing in community, so that when they go back into school or when they're in their families, they feel a sense of confidence of who and what they are that they can continue through. And that's so vital. Otherwise, I don't know that the work is as important if you can't share it, right? If you still have to hold it inside.
Talk a little bit more about that, about what's called integration, right?
Yeah.
Do the kids actually graduate the class? Is there any kind of formality there, or they just move on? And then that moving on is this integration period. Do they come back and ask questions and say, hey, this is not so easy?
Yeah.
How does that go?
So at least historically, we've offered at least summer classes every year so that kids can come back. And they do. So I would say more than 60% of the kids will come back to us for either a summer class, or if we're offering a class in their school, they'll come back for that as well. And we do then have conversations about, this has been difficult since the last time we saw each other. We also really emphasize them talking to their peers. So the very first summer we set up a Discord server, which I subsequently learned I am not capable of managing at all, because they are so active on it that I was like, I cannot monitor this, so we need a different method to keep them in touch. I would check my messages and it would be like 2,000 messages on the Discord server, and I'm like, okay, there's only 8 kids. Like, how is this happening? So we've shied away from that as a means of keeping them together, and instead really focus on, during the class, highlighting the connections with the students that they're connected to, and really saying, look, these are the people to talk to, because it can't just be us, right? This is a generation of people who need to be able to rely on themselves and each other, and not me and the people who work with our organization. So that's a big part of the integration process, and then us being there and available for them. And a lot of the kids have our numbers and our email addresses, so they will occasionally write to us or text us or ask questions. And we are really clear with the parents that we have that open line of communication, so that they're not, taken aback by the fact that we're speaking with them. Sometimes we have calls with the kids. It really depends on what they need, but we're there for them, and they know that. And that's also really valuable, that they know that they are our priority. Yeah.
To know that, for a kid to know that they are a priority is not only rare, but it's so important.
Yeah.
Maybe before I forget, I'll ask you the name of the organization. Kind of where is your organization, so people kind of understand. We'll recap that later, but maybe name and location and all of that.
So the name of the organization is The Epicenter, and we have 2 locations. So one in Michigan and then one here in California, primarily Los Angeles, although we've done some work up in the Bay as well.
Okay. And Los Angeles being an area of growth for you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. The kids have, we talked about this before, the kids not only come from these, I'll say, different profiles, to be nice about it, but different, fairly traumatic experiences, and unable to fit a certain kind of institutional or curriculum, and really just falling down in terms of self-esteem.
Yeah.
So then they come to you, or they're thrown to you, and then they go, oh my God, there's something very different here.
Yeah.
And then they start listening different. Their attention changes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Their ability to attend longer changes.
Yeah.
And one of my big concerns has been and continues to be the way in which attention is mined from young minds. And, with the AI, it's going to continue.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just wondering how if you can give some examples, how the kids that are seen as ADHD, perhaps misdiagnosed, I don't know, but then they suddenly come into your class and after some projects, what happens?
Yeah, they'll say, I don't have ADHD in this class. Which is funny because they'll often come in and state their diagnoses. Just so you know, I have ADHD, or just so you know, I have autism and ADHD, and I can't sit still, and I have this and that. And so we just say, okay, no problem, because it is no problem. And then over time, we'll just gently say, hey, have you noticed that you've been working on this project for 2 hours and you haven't left your chair? It's really interesting how you're able to focus here. And it changes their perception of themselves because they're told, again, this is what you are. This is a label, right? This is who you are. Smack a label on it. And then they carry that through and they act it out, which of course they do. If you gave me a label, I'd probably act it out too. So especially if I'm young and I can't discern what's true, what's not true, you've got people telling you this is what you are, you take it on board. So it's amazing to see how many of those kids don't have any of those issues in this particular setting. And actually, something comes to mind when you mentioned the technology. There's one student in particular that we had in our class last year. This girl is so perceptive. So she has some developmental disability, I don't know what, and she's in a special needs class. And she was coming to our class and watching a lot of, or playing a game or something. You can tell how much online I am. It's probably a game. Must have been a game, but the games look like movies, so it's hard for me to tell. And I had asked her to fill out one of the surveys that the state needed us to fill out. And she starts having a complete meltdown. And so I said to her, because it was the beginning of class, she's playing this game, and I was like, hey, what's going on? And she goes, I want to fill out this survey, and I can't because I can't stop playing this game. And she starts crying. And she said, I am addicted to this game. She's 11. Okay, 11 in a special needs class where they basically determined she can't articulate anything for herself, right? Like they've kind of written her off. She is able to see, I have an addiction to this game. It is upsetting me just that I can't participate in class in the way that I want to because of it. And so I said, okay, well, what do you think we should do? We really give the agency back to the kids. And she said, I need to stop playing it. And I said, okay, do you think maybe if we close the computer, that would help? She said, yes. So she starts doing the survey, and then she just screams. She's like, I want the game back. I said, okay, do you really want the game back? Or is that just the addiction piece that you called it? And so she said, no, okay, no, I want to do this. So it was this fight. So what you're saying is so real, and very few students actually recognize it. It was amazing that
parents.
She did. Mm-hmm.
I mean, parents are parenting differently.
Mm-hmm.
They're parenting devices and their children.
Yeah.
And they're triaging all of this.
Yeah.
And they see that devices, or I should say devices in this case, AI, what's on the devices, as being something that's disruptive. No. It's like another entity.
Yeah.
And they need to address it that way.
Yeah.
So that was like one of those prime moments where the kid is so like raw on their honesty.
Yeah.
You see the addiction like there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm with you. I'm with you. My daughter brought her computer to me a couple of weeks ago and just said, Daddy, you need to take this. Now, I limit it as much as I can.
Yeah.
As much as I can. We got to talk about what that means for all of us. But she goes, take this, Daddy. Please take this.
Oh.
It's harming me. And it's like 7:00 in the evening.
Oh.
She's a pretty self-aware girl.
Yeah, wow.
And we've had many discussions around AI, and she is that future that is being built for better or for worse, just like this wonderful girl.
Yeah.
That's the future she will live in, right? So do you see more and more, or just maybe not more, this sort of overlap between digital forms of addiction and kind of the medicalization of kids, and how that sort of plays into each other?
Yeah, well, for sure. Because in our class, so they get all these diagnoses. They're always on a computer. And I mean, not the elementary school kids, but once they get to 4th grade, they're given a computer. So now they're 9, and they have usually a phone. A lot of them also have a watch. And so, of course, right, they're all over the place. And then they come in all over the place, and we take all of that away. That's not part of the class. Because it has no place in the class. I mean, if you're going to explore the inner world of you don't need a device for that. And so we do gently make that correlation or ask the question, do you feel like there might be something to do with how you're behaving in school and all the devices and all the things that are clamoring for your attention, and how it is here when there isn't a device and you're working with clay or you're outside and we're on a walk and there's nothing to distract you from what's happening right now. And when you can say that to them and they experience it, then they can really start to notice it. But it helps to make that, not only to make that connection, but to have that experience. Because if you just say to kids, well, you don't want to be on this device, right? It's addictive, it's distracting, it's this, that, but they don't have an experience of being present, it doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't mean anything. They have no agency to pull away from that addiction.
Exactly.
You can spank them, you can do whatever you need to do, and then it's like,
Right. And then it's right back to the phone.
Yes,
right
back.
Yeah.
Right back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We really, I think more as a culture, we haven't quite, as parents in the culture, have not understood, and as teachers, the depth of this addiction and why it's already engineered.
Yeah.
And it's going to get a lot worse. Like, we have to kind of really be leaders in our own families.
Yes.
And I wanted to ask, like, the age range for the kids that you work with.
So we work with K through 12. So we work with a really broad age range.
Okay.
The classes, though, are not all together, all those kids, because they're at different stages in understanding themselves. So we usually group it for 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and then high school. Typically something like that, so that kids are with their peers. Also, because this community is so important, that you're not really building a strong community with a 2nd grader and a 10th grader, right?
Sure.
So we age group them.
Yeah, and the other thing it's interesting, I wanted to ask, how is this work changing you?
Oh.
Yeah, how is it changing you, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure it happens, the change goes on, but how is it changing you?
Yeah, wow. Thank you. No one's ever asked me that before.
We don't hang out.
We need to. Yeah, well, it's a great question. So the first thing that comes to my mind is around real compassion for people. So not that I would say I didn't have compassion, but when you're working with kids who are in situations that are so dire, right? They're facing homelessness. They don't have enough food. They are in a really unstable environment, and they're struggling. And then you see their parents, and their parents are really struggling. You start to realize that just the amount of love and capacity for love that we have, the amount of the capacity for compassion that we have, that I don't think I really recognized until I started working with these kids, and the amount of love and compassion that I can have for someone that I don't know. Like, these kids just come into our class, I don't know who they are, and sometimes, over the summer the class is only a week, sometimes it's 2 weeks. It's not a long time, and I feel like I couldn't love these kids more in that time. And so it's really started to change how I interact then with adults, because I also see, well, some of the adults where historically I've been like, oh, it's so challenging, right? Judgy, gripey, whatever. I realized, well, they were just these kids. And in some sense, like, they almost didn't have a chance. Like, what do we want from each other? We created a system that stifles our being, that limits us constantly, that causes us to be like this, like in a blender of distraction. Like, maybe we could just have a little bit more compassion for each other and understanding that like, we created a system that's really harmful to all of us. And so if somebody's struggling within that system, like maybe we could reach out a hand and help rather than sit on our high chair and just be like, well, you really didn't understand that, or you missed that, or you're wrong. Working with these kids and with these parents, it's also with the parents, right? Like, it's not helpful to be in a place of judgment. Like, they're doing the best they can. Everybody is doing the best they can.
But that's a really important point, because, the parent-child relationship, as good or bad as it is, after the kids sort of move out, maybe they're going to take your summer program.
Yeah.
But they're in this moment of trying to figure out, how can I live this life again?
Right.
Live that life. They've discovered it, but live this life. How are the parents then? Do you have a parent program?
So we just started a parent program, actually.
Okay.
We tried earlier, but a lot of the parents, they don't have time, right? They work third shift, they work odd hours, or this program is sort of a godsend for them for their kids, but they don't have the capacity. So the way we've been working with the parents prior to having a parent program is by hosting meetings as often as we can on Zoom for parents to attend, going out to the car and just talking to the parents about what's happening with their kids in a way that doesn't violate any of the trust with the child, obviously. But just saying, actually opening their eyes to the beauty of their children. That's really what it is. Like, the most amazing thing happened today with, Sarah. She did this and she drew this, and you can really see her beautiful heart, and just that type of language to remind them that this isn't something that a child that has to be controlled and minimized, but there's something beautiful here that can be nourished and nurtured. That's what we've done so far. It's really helped. It's such a small thing, but it's such a small shift in perspective. I mean, if anybody listening is a parent, just to reframe the relationship with the child as more of a partnership, right? They have something to give and share. You have a lot of wisdom to give and share. Why not work together to create something beautiful rather than like, you're not following my directions. Obey me, which I get it's hard, but like, there's a lot more beauty that can be found in a different perspective.
I'm interested in that sort of obey piece.
Yeah.
Because, some kids are pushed, and they need to be pushed. I mean, this is my opinion, towards a certain level of excellence that they already can achieve.
Yes.
And so they need that support. And
Yes.
sometimes they don't want to practice. They don't. It's like, you've got to get out there and do it. Okay, so there's that. That's what I'm referring to.
Yeah.
It's not so much obey, but what it is like, you can do this, right?
Right.
So come on.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so there's that. The other thing is, I hear a certain kind of parent in my head right now. I want my kid to be ready for the job market.
Oh yeah.
I want that kid. You're making this like kid like fuzzy and like some teddy bear. I don't want a teddy bear. So do you ever have those conversations?
Oh yes. Yes, you're making my kid soft.
Yes.
Yes.
Soft.
Yes, very much, especially from dads of boys. A lot of that. Like, I don't want my kid to feel so much. What are you doing, making my son so soft? Very much a thing. So first, I do want to say what you said about the encouragement of practice. That feels to me like a partnership, right? That's what a good partner would do. Encourage the other partner to grow and to be the best of themselves that they can be. Very different than obey, right? Which is that I know what's best for you. Totally different vibe. We do get that, and it's interesting to me because I don't know what the job market's going to look like when these kids are entering the job market. So
we don't know it next year.
I know. So it's kind of funny that we would be so fixated on something 10 years from now and sacrifice the entire well-being of a human for the next 10 years for something that we don't know what it even looks like. And my gut feeling is that these, I don't know, we can call them skills for the sake of this job market conversation, but like these things that we have to give within ourselves, the creative aspect of our being, this is what makes us human. So why would you not cultivate that? Because whatever's coming in the future, there's got to be space for that if humanity is going to survive. So cultivating that to me feels like we are preparing them for the job market. But it takes people aback because coming from a neuroscientist, that sounds like sacrilege, right? Like STEM, it should be all STEM.
Yeah, I understand it. You're just not talking about neuroscience in general. You're talking about cognitive neuroscience specifically. But even neuroscience has the boundaries are starting to open, particularly the work in consciousness and neuromodulation and these areas. And AI's helped sort of accelerate some of that. But the point is that I don't want to go into a critique of cognitive neuroscience. I just want to say that you've broken that mold.
Yeah.
Now you're finding your way and helping kids find their way towards a more whole self in a trajectory. In this case, they could be 17 turning to 18, where there's a lot of uncertainty, in the world, but also just in their own life at that time. And so what you're doing, I remember taking my daughter, and I was asking this one woman, is when I first came back to LA, and she was an admission counselor, and she had her kids in the school. And I said, so why should we bring our kid here? Like, why? I said, why did you have 2 or 3 kids here? And they're all graduated. Like, so what makes them different? This is Waldorf education. And she said, when my kids meet someone, they shake their hand and they look them in the eye with no shame. And I thought, wow, what a beautiful thing to say, but also very straightforward.
Yeah.
She was like, they have inner strength. And that inner strength in a very interesting technical world, but also world in general, is something that you're building, and the kids need to integrate back into their places, their homes, with building that further. So that's what I was asking about the parents. Like, so the parents will take that, hopefully, and help them convert it into more.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So the parent program sounds to me almost as important eventually.
Yeah.
As the kids program.
Yeah.
So you see that.
Yeah. Oh, very much so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they're going to become students too.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Exactly.
I don't know.
That's the hope, right? That it's a movement. Oh, sorry, microphone. That it's a movement.
Okay.
Because the kids need the support of the parents. The parents need the support of the kids. We all need each other for this to really work and for us to thrive. So, yeah, it's a beautiful circle that I see. And it just started with the kids because, I did start actually trying with adults and I got nowhere. So
you started there originally.
Yeah,
I see.
Originally started with adults. I came thinking, I had written this book on consciousness and I'd done all this work and I can't wait to share this with all these adults. And most of that was met with a lot of resistance. Just it was too much and it was overwhelming. And so I thought, kids are really open and I've always wanted to work with kids. So that's how it ended up being with kids. I was really afraid to work with kids when I started because I thought, they know so much, right? It's really easy to work with adults. We don't know very much. And we're blocked up all over the place. So we're not really discerning and we kind of can't figure out when something isn't quite right. But kids know. Like you can fake it, but they know. So I was nervous and couldn't have been a greater gift. And now I get to go back and work with adults from a place of really understanding and knowing kids. And it's so much better that way. Yeah.
That's wonderful. I know we only have a few minutes, but I wanted to say, just kind of restate the organization again, because I want people to know. And if someone has a child and they kind of feel like that child might benefit from your program, how would they contact you?
Oh, please send me an email. It's on our website, or send me a text message. Please reach out. Please. Don't hesitate.
And what is the email or website?
So our organization is called The Epicenter. The website is a little, just bear with me. It's BE-THE-EPICENTER.org. So it's b-the-epicenter.org. So obviously the epicenter coming from within, right? So you be the epicenter for everyone around you and radiate that love and compassion out. And the email address that's best is Allison, Allison, @b-the-epicenter.org.
Perfect, perfect. Well, Allison, I have several questions and several podcasts that I could spend time with you, but we'll have to close this one. But one thing I'd like the audience to know is that in the work that you're involved in and your colleagues that I'm familiar with, it really is blowing the doors off of what we're capable of feeling and acknowledging in ourselves as human beings. So you say this idea of what makes us human, being creative. What makes us human is acknowledging the scope of that creativity.
Yes.
And it's still not touched very well.
Yes.
So I just, applaud you for starting these children down that road. And that is the future, regardless of whatever you're in. If you can be creative and stay open and flexible, it's going to be really helpful. So thank you, Allison, for the great work.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you.